Yo, what's good, guys? This is Theo here, coming to you live with another video. Do sort of a instructional video here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to explain asynchronous programming to my grandma. So this is how I imagine the conversation would go. So let me sort of break it down for you guys. So, all right, Grandma, today I'm going to try and explain to you what asynchronous programming is. And so if you don't know anything about programming, the first thing that I can tell you is, if you've ever used the internet, right? So the internet is basically a network of web pages, and you can access it through what we call a browser, which is just a method, basically, in layman's terms, to access these pages. And basically, on this internet, similar to any other store or business, there is traffic. Okay, and what do I mean by traffic? I mean there are lots of people requesting data from a multitude of pages. So you can think of it as stores. So many people that are requesting product from a business. And what does that result in? A lot of times that results in a line or a wait. Okay, so when you go into your browser, say you open up your Internet Explorer, and you type in google.com, what happens is that your browser, almost like a messenger, sends a request, so sends in an order to the google.com page in layman's terms. We're not going to get too deep into that. And basically, if that exists, right, if that product web page exists, then we send back, then this company, Google, will send you back the web page, the content, what you're going to see on the page, right? So that's sort of the general process of how you're going to look at this page. We sort of looked at it at a very high overview, but right, so now you're on this page, and say there's a button on this page, right? There's a button, and it says, click here to, sign up, right? So, or maybe, there's a form, and it says enter your details to get alerts about local weather, something like that, or local news. And you just put in your name, your zip code, and your email. And then there's this button here called submit. So generally, the most common model on the internet for the longest time was this. You would hit submit, and in the background, the browser would communicate with this company, right? This web page, their warehouse, which is what we call a server. It would send your information to this server, but the problem still is, because this is still pretty common on a lot of the web, is that when you do this and you're sending everything in one request, you sort of block up resources. So the best way that I can explain this is, think of a traditional model of let me think of a good example. So a traditional model of this, where you have this line, is maybe think of a hot dog stand, where they make your food, and then the next person comes up and gets it. So think of that example for a second, and now think of a a barber shop where you take a number and then you can go sit down and they can call you when you're ready, or when your number comes up. But the difference is they can continue issuing numbers and serving people. So the first model we call synchronous, because what happens is when this takes place, you cannot do anything else until this customer is served, or in web terms, until this request has completed and the browser sends back a confirmation, in this case, thank you for signing up. This next method is called asynchronous programming, and what happens here is your information, right, sort of just gets put in a queue, right, and when the browser, can deal with it, which depending on, how time intensive it is, then it will be executed. So again, these are very sort of broad details, but I'm just trying to get you to understand it. So now that we have those sort of concepts, let's look at how this actually works, right? So what happens with this synchronous request, this idea of the hot dog stand is, it has a customer 1, serves them, goes to customer 2, serves them, goes to customer 3, and so on. So it really is that it's a queue. It's a queue with a first in, first out, right? But with the asynchronous programming, and when I say first in, first out, I mean the first person there is going to get served, then the next person, then the next person, until it's all done. With your asynchronous programming, what you have is you have the first person that comes up, they take a number, so num1, and then they go and sit back down at their seat. Then num2, num3, num4, and basically what can happen is the browser it has what's called an event loop, okay, and what it will do. So you have 3 different things going on. You have a stack, okay. Let me try and explain what these things do. You have a stack, an event queue, and you have an event loop. Your stack is going to handle, very basic operations. Like your stack might give out the number because that's quick. You can, give it out and tell the person to sit down. But, right, what would go in an event queue? Okay, something that takes time. Prepping the hot dog, taking inventory, time-intensive operations. And now you have this event loop which, looks at the stack, and continuously. Well, hold on, let me explain it better. So it looks at this stack, this sort of data structure in the browser that is operating these sort of busy work operations that don't require a lot of time. It looks at the stack, and then it looks at the event queue. But what it does really, think of a school bus that goes around the neighborhood, and it doesn't have preference. It just keeps going, and if it sees someone, it picks them up. Otherwise, keeps going. So in technical terms, it will pick up an event, right? Almost just like a loop, and it will push it into the stack, and then your stack will execute that command. And otherwise, you might get your hot dog, or you might get your haircut. So you might sort of wonder, why does this matter again? So it goes back to this idea of creating a seamless user interface. And when I say that, I mean creating an experience on the internet when you as a customer go to a web page, and when you click something, the page, the store, doesn't have to invest all of its resources to get you what you need. In a similar way, when you order a hot dog at the hot dog stand, it wouldn't make sense that all of the workers work together on making your hot dog, right? There's delegation of responsibility. So the last thing I want to explain is how this actually works in a browser. So I sort of looked at it, but basically what you have is you have what's called threads. And JavaScript, which is the language I've been talking about, basically the programming language in the background that's doing all of this, uses a single thread. And what that means is that it's event driven, in that it's listening constantly to stuff that you're doing on the page. And when I say events, I mean, say you clicked a button or you submitted a form. And what this will do is, it'll sort of, again, create this stack and this queue and this loop. But for your time-intensive operations in your queue, these will spin up other threads inside of the browser. So you don't actually create these. You don't create the implementation. You cause, right, with sort of the actions that you take. So by doing this, the result is a cleaner user interface, like I explained, a cleaner sort of experience for you as the user, and you also free up resources, and you can basically sort of do more operations because you're a little more patient in a way. And when I say patient, I mean you're basically writing or doing programming that says, okay, I'm willing to sort of wait on my data, wait on my product, because I want a better experience, right? So this could be a similar analogy to I'm willing to wait for a shirt to come back in stock because I value the brand, something like that. So that was part one of explaining asynchronous programming to my grandmother. If you guys want me to expand on this or tell me how I did, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day. Take care.